Okay, hello down there in Australia and very early morning here in the UK to Erwin Brem from the Sunshine Coast. Good morning or good afternoon, Erwin.
Right, it's late good afternoon now. We're just heading just after 5 o'clock. So yeah, good to see you, John.
And Erwin, we first met back in the early 1990s when you had a company called Paradise Framing. And
Absolutely.
You were a customer on my first trading platform, Queensland Trade Exchange.
Right.
I think I can even remember the account number was something like PAR 068 or something like that.
So, John, you have an unbelievable memory. I can barely remember stuff that happened last week at the moment, but I do remember the years that we were part of Queensland Trade Exchange, because you guys were one of the early, I guess, not adopters, but one of the early influences of the whole trade exchange system. So back when it started, and in those days, I don't know, I had my business for a couple of years, but obviously you guys came along and did a good job of me, so I joined.
Very good. So Erwin, you had a picture framing business back then. What made you join a trading platform all those years ago?
Oh, look, I'd like to say there was something really clever along the lines of that I could see the benefits of the trade exchange, but I think I just got sold really well. But look, honestly, it was a no-brainer. We'd heard about them for a little bit now, and there was a lot of talk already, even in those early years, that it was a way of generating extra business. And hey, it did that for us. We generated sales that we normally wouldn't have got. We moved stock that we couldn't move. We had downtime. It's all the stuff that you and I have been banging on now for about 30 years plus. But it is stuff that even as a business owner back then, I used and utilized those things, and we then turned that into things that we would normally spend cash on. But a lot of the time we would have spent them on things that we would normally spend cash on. So they were lifestyle things, So we improved lifestyle, extra holidays, bought things for the home, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
The rewards.
So there's been a lot of water under the bridge in the last 30 years. It's amazing how we were both very young men back in those days. And you've moved up to the Sunshine Coast now, and you've started a new business up there, local business now during COVID, and a very topical subject, obviously globally. So can you share a little bit about that, Erwin?
Sure. Well, I was a franchisee with Bartercard for 22 years, and I got to a point where I had enough of that, and I think it was time to move on. And I consulted to them for about another 2.5 years after that. But after that, I was done, and we sort of talked, my wife and I had a bit of a chat and said, look, I think it's time to move. We were living in Brisbane at the time, so we moved up the Sunshine Coast, and we've been coming up here for a long, long time. This is we'd sort of almost part-time lived up here, but we moved up permanently now, and we love the life. But we had started working on a couple of business ideas prior to selling Bartercard, and one was a business training platform, and the other one was a platform based around supporting local business. Anyway, moved up to the Sunshine Coast, and I think we all know what happened in February. The world shut down, and pretty much everything that was based around my business training platform also got shut down, because our platform was based on live workshops. So, we'd have groups of 10 or 20 people come into our workshops, and it was a subscription-based model, all working really nicely down in Brisbane. But, literally move up here and COVID hits, and that's the end of it. It's all over. So, we started, I guess, doing the things that we were telling other people to do, which was, pivot and adapt and change and all that sort of stuff. And we started working a little bit heavier on the Local Business Now platform, worked with a local software developer up here to actually develop a platform where our clients could list their businesses on, and it was all free. So, this was something that we were basically doing for the local community and fundamentally local small businesses, because, in what we've all gone through around the world at the moment, the simple answer to, I guess, getting businesses back on track, making money again, resurrecting the economy from where it is now back to where it should be, is simply done by supporting small local business more than we do right now. And, I guess from my point of view, it was actually all about supporting Sunshine Coast businesses. It wasn't even about supporting Brisbane or Australia. I mean, yeah, we don't have it here, use that, but it was simply about, if you need something done, have we got somebody on the Sunshine Coast to do it? And if we have, support them first. Because it was, look, I post a lot of stuff on our Sunshine Coast Business Now social media platform. And, a lot of the stuff is actually so simple to understand that if you improved, you're buying around about 10% of the country, we're talking something in the hundreds of billions of dollars the effect that it has in the economy. So totally a no-brainer. So we've predominantly been working on that. The objective next year is to scale it. Currently, right now, the only part of it that exists is Sunshine Coast. So we're looking next year, early in the new year, of developing probably about 10 other platform hubs around Queensland. So they'll go all up and down the east coast of Australia. And we've already had people from other parts of the country that have expressed interest. We're just not ready to go down that stage right now, And there is a lot of local, buy local, think local, go local first, There's a lot of that stuff all over the world. And, I think America and I think UK have had one for a long, long time, which is the Buy Local Shopping Week, I think it's called, or referred to like that. So we're trying to basically not just make this a one-off thing. We're trying to make this something that people think about supporting local business over and above everything else first, no matter what it is, whether it's local primary producers, whether it's manufacturers, whatever it might be. If there's a way, if you need something, hey, just ask the question, is this an Australian-made product, is Australian-owned business? I mean, the classic example, my car and my battery died on the weekend, so I need to go out and buy a new battery. So I did that at the local automotive shop, and I found one that had Australian made on it, right? I got it home, stuck in the car, all good, great. Found out the next day that it's actually Japanese-owned company, Sure, they're made in Australia, but where do the profits go? The profits go back overseas again. So, that to a certain degree, that might sound a little bit odd, but my philosophy, and I guess a lot of other people's, is that even if it's made somewhere else, as long as the company is owned here, then the profits are going to stay here. So That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think there's a big movement globally, certainly here in the UK, for people to buy from local businesses and from small businesses. Small businesses Absolutely. Globally make up over 50% of the employment globally, and I think there's a lot of people wanting to start or continue the movement of buying local before you give to the big guys.
No doubt. I mean, look, I think one of the biggest challenges we've got at the moment, John, is that we're actually not hurting enough at the moment. We've got to get to a point, and look, Australia currently right now is going through a rather interesting scenario with China, with them black banning our beef, but also adding massive tariffs on the Australian wine industry, right? So what you've really got to do is you really have to change the way you think about things, including, well, we now need to support the Australian wine industry. We need to make sure that we're only buying Australian wine so that those manufacturers can survive what's going on right now.
Yeah. Erwin, you've been in the trading industry nearly as long as me, and so that's a long time. What would you say are the top 1 or 2 tips out there for people who wanted to sell some spare capacity? What would you think are the top 1 or 2 things that they should do?
Look, the one thing that I used to say to all of my clients all the time is just simply be open to doing everything. I mean, the secret with making a trade exchange work successfully is that, as you and I both know, and a lot of members of trade exchanges everywhere would know, that making a sale actually isn't the complicated part. That's the easy bit. What you've actually got to do to make it work well is you've got to be open to spending everywhere. The worst thing that can happen, and once again, trade exchanges are the epitome of buy local. That's why I've always loved the concept of it, because at the end of the day, if you need to buy a battery for your car, the first thing you do is you find out, is there a supplier of those batteries on the system? So, my biggest tip with every one of the members that we used to have with our system for almost 25 years was think laterally about everything. How can you spend better? What sort of options have you got? Are there ways to, cash convert, buy for friends? Everything boils around the spending. The sales are easy, And then from the other aspect of it, that if you need to make sales, I mean, I think one of the challenges with a lot of businesses are that we get very lazy these days in how we actually market our businesses, you know. So you've just got to start getting a little bit creative. And even though, you know, anything through barter fundamentally is a simple way of selling a product, sometimes you've got to get a bit smarter. And, you know, barter is the great way of being able to test things. You know, you bring a new product on. Does it work in barter? If it works on barter, then maybe it's a good chance it could work in the cash economy as well. So I think, you know, like everything, and we've talked about this on some of my posts and your posts, John, that, you know, the challenges that businesses have got is they take a lot of things for granted to a certain degree these days. Just get better at it. Get better at your marketing. Get better at, you know, finding ways to save business, the cash in the business. And barter's the perfect way to do that.
Yeah. I think, and that's the reason, Erwin, that I've got in my exhibition section of this show 3 places: how to earn more money, save more money, and enjoy more money. So
Absolutely.
They're the aspects. What was the most unusual trade? Can you remember, Erwin, that sticks out in your memory?
Look, you know, there's a couple of them, John, and you know, my wife and I were incredibly good spenders. We never had that problem, but I probably could tell you that the most unusual one I ever did was I got to a point in my paralysed training business that I got very stressed for a little while just working so hard. So my wife said to me, you need a hobby. So I think I found a surfboard manufacturer on QTE down on the Gold Coast, and I ordered myself a surfboard over the phone, right? So I had no idea what a bloody surfboard looked like, and I just rang the guy up and I said, mate, I need a surfboard. I need a hobby. He said, yep, I can help you with that one. I said, what colour does it come in? He said, it comes in yellow. Awesome, perfect for me. I think it was $500 at the time, which was about 35 years ago. It was probably the most expensive board anyone's ever bought. But hey, I bought it, and I think I took it out once, John. That was it.
There you go.
Never went any further with it.
So people got to remember that this was pre-internet, pre-mobile phones, pre-apps. It was an interesting time. What was the biggest trade you've ever done in any single transaction, Erwin?
For myself?
Or that you've been involved in?
Well, the biggest one myself. I mean, we did plenty of huge transactions, predominantly, I guess, revolving around property in, you know, over many, many, many years. But I actually, one of the biggest ones I ever did for myself was I bought some property. I bought a holiday apartment up at Cairns. It was the worst investment decision of my entire life. But the really exciting news about it was I was able to buy 35% on barter. So I didn't lose 35% cash out of the thing. And when I eventually sold it, I got my 35% cash back again. So bad investment, recouped my money, but at least I converted my barter back into cash again. So at the end of the day, it wasn't too bad.
Yep. So mitigation, and we're going to be having a section on the show from the boys at BizSpot down in Sydney, and they've got $2.1 billion worth of real estate sitting on their platform today. So that'll be an interesting section later on. Erwin, you owned a franchise for nearly 25 years. For the people out there that are in the franchise industry, and we will have some people in that space, just in general, what would you see of the top 1 or 2, 3 things that you would advise people looking to buy a franchise of some kind?
Look, that's actually really interesting, John, because it's one of those things I've actually, I've put lots of work in dealing with a lot of the clients that I've had over the years. We've had many various franchises, and fundamentally, I think there's 2 key things that I think the majority of mistakes get made on. And one is that there's not enough due diligence done when you're entering into a franchise. So, you know, you find a franchise and you like whatever that product or service is. So you go ahead and outlay the money, regardless of what it is. And some franchises can be pretty blooming expensive, and some can be as cheap as chips, right? But hey, at the end of the day, if it actually doesn't do what it said you were going to do, then hey, you're going to lose money. But the other part of it, and I certainly learnt this from my franchising days, is that predominantly most people get into a franchise because the system's already been developed. So, you know, you get into it and the sales process, the marketing system, the customer service aspect of it, the planning, the management, the way we train staff, the branding, everything's been done. without doubt, of the businesses in Bartercard that I saw fail, the reason they failed was they didn't follow the systems. If they actually did, they would have made the sales they were supposed to make. They would service their clients. You know, I saw people that decided to come up with their own colour selection for Bartercard logos because they didn't like the green. So we're going to go with blue, you know, so we'll do that one. And that's why they come unstuck, you know, and I think that's the same with everything. So, you know, there was a story years and years and years ago about a guy that decided to, you know, that had bought a McDonald's franchise and decided to wanted to make his own Mexican franchise, McDonald's burgers, you know. And of course, you know, you don't do that because it's not fitting into the system that they've got. And all of a sudden you're going against the grain of the franchise. So look, it's really simple. Due diligence, but just do it. The system is there and you've done the due diligence of it. And, you know, you've seen the success that others have. It's a no-brainer. Do what the other successful ones do and your business will work as well.
Yeah, good advice there. So, Erwin, they say that 50% of all marketing works, that you just don't know which half. And I speak around the world on this subject, and I know it's close to your heart as well. But what tips out there would you give to people that involved in marketing and marketing for their business? Because it's probably one of the biggest reasons that small businesses fail is that they don't do enough of it. But what would you say would be a few tips there in that arena?
Look, there's no doubt from, I guess, my research, what I've done over the last 4 and a bit years since I've left Bartercard, that fundamentally the most confusing part, the most difficult bit to get right is marketing. You know, people believe they need to do something with it, but they don't know what, because they don't know what bit works, right? And of all the clients that I've worked with over the last few years, the fundamental thing that's missing is they don't measure anything. So they have no data. They don't know what they've got out of a social media ad. They don't know what they got out of an ad they stuck in a magazine. They just do it, and then they just hope that some results happen, you know. And I know I've worked with a couple of clients that it's just a shocker. You know, you sit down with them and have a conversation about how many leads do you get a month, and they won't know, right? And then the next question might be, well, okay, let's see if we can find out. Where do your leads come from? Well, they come from some online stuff, some social media stuff. How do you measure that? You know, when you get a social media lead in, what's the process that it goes through? You know, and 99% of people don't keep any data. So they don't know what they're getting out of it. They don't know what's being converted. But even worse than that, they often don't know what isn't succeeding with the inquiries they get. So somebody might social message in or something, wants some information about something, and it doesn't go anywhere. But there's no follow-up after to find out why did that client say no, you know. So everything about that is really simple fundamentals. And, you know, the biggest challenge that I think we've had over the last at least 2 years is that businesses now rely on social media as their fundamental answer to marketing. And most of them do it organic, free. So we all know now that to make anything work on Facebook these days is almost impossible unless you're prepared to put a reasonable amount of money on it, right? So what you've got to be able to realise is that you can't get your marketing going anywhere unless you're putting something behind it. You've got to spend something, but if you're not capturing the data from anything, then you don't know what the hell works and what doesn't work anyway, you know? Yep. And one of the stats that I got just recently from my accountant was that up until about 2 or 3 years ago, the average business would spend about 5% of their budget on marketing. Now it's under 1%. And the reason that they're doing that is that they're just trying to save cash wherever they can. And if that means, well, my marketing is now based around free Facebook, then that's my marketing.
Yeah, that was interesting. Deloitte's released a report recently that suggested that particularly during times like COVID, it should go the other way. And they were suggesting 11%. Was the number that people should be allocating, but
absolutely, no doubt about it. You know, and what's actually happening is the absolute opposite, and in particular with small business, because look, you know, an average small business can't afford to put $1,000 or $2,000 a month on social media advertising, right? And the only reason they can't is they don't know what they're getting out of it.
Yeah.
If they knew they were getting something out of it, then you could justify doing it. So they put $2,000 or $1,500 into something, and they don't know what really worked. So the next month they go, that didn't work, don't bother.
Yep.
Leave it.
That's and lack of consistency. Interesting. Erwin, you must have met quite a lot of interesting people and characters in your time in your business life. What was the most interesting person that you came across, and why was that?
Oh, look, if you're talking about other clients that I've met over the years, look, to be honest, they're actually, a lot of the businesses I've met, I've admired from the point of view that here's someone that works 60 hours a week. You know, they get a small return for themselves. We all know the returns on the average small business are pretty ordinary, and they keep doing it day after day after day, and they get to a point where they retire and, you know, they're just like everybody else, you know. So I don't actually look at those people as the people that I've admired over the years. I've actually admired more some of the very few larger businesses that we've had. And the really weird part about it is I admire them because of how they've run their business more so than what their business is or what they are. And there's predominantly two that I've got. I've got one that was in a very, very successful pots and pans business, right? And for the way that this business operated was it was all door to door, and also sold by, you know, home shows and that sort of stuff. But the success these guys had was simply built on good old-fashioned sales, you know, good, well-trained people that, you know, worked 8 hours a day and worked 5 days a week, and they made lots of money and their business grew substantially, you know. The other one was a bit different though. His was, you know, almost similar vein industry, but a little bit different. But his business was a very, very systemized business. And that's the thing that I think I admire most with anybody, because the idea of getting into business isn't that you work your rear off until the day you drop dead, you know. The idea should be that you develop a business that's all based around systems and management, so that, you know, you've got the staff doing what they need to do, and you've got the sales processes and the customer service things. And that's what I used to love about my franchise with Bartercup. You know, one of the things that I often did when I would go out with mates during the week, other franchisees, for, you know, a lunch that we'd catch up once every 3 months, is that I always used to notice that their phone would go off all the time, and it would be a client ringing to talk to them. And I never had that. And I always thought, is there something wrong with me? And I realised years later that, no, I just got those clients to be serviced by our staff, that they actually didn't rely on me. Yep. And that's how you want a business to run. You know, you want a business to be run, managed the right well. If you've got the right staff and they're doing your job, you can rely on the staff. And it's not that we go out for lunch every day of the week, but it means that I can rely on those people to do the things that they want to do.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point. So there's 2 points with that. One is that, you know, running a business can be lonely at times, you know, particularly in one owner businesses where you haven't got people around you. What would be the number one tip with that you'd suggest for anybody that was in that space?
Just how to shut down,
how to overcome loneliness, and how to reach out, or how to share the ideas. We're going to have a big session in the show just about wellness, mental health, and that sort of stuff.
I've always been a believer, and after my surfboard experience, it's not about surfing. That's definitely not the solution. But I've always had lots of interest. You know, business for me is one of my interests. You know, I'm into music, I'm into photography, I'm into cars. I have something that has an out, you know. But you've also got to have, I think, the concept of having a group of people that are similar to yourself, and to be able to sit down and bounce ideas off is a really, really important thing. Because the challenge with most small businesses is, you're right, they are on their own. And often the only person they have to talk about anything is their partner or their wife or their husband, right? And that isn't necessarily always a good move. You want to, one of the things that I did for the last couple of years before COVID really shut our training platform down was our workshops train key aspects of how to run businesses better. But without doubt, 50% of why people came was they got to sit in a room with 10 to 15 other business people that were just like them, and they got to talk to them. So, you know, my training workshops would go from 45 minutes to an hour. We'd chat a little bit, but then I couldn't get them out of the room for another 15, 20 minutes, you know, because they all they were bouncing off ideas off each other, and they would leave that meeting with not only what I trained them, but what somebody else had said. Hey, listen, I've got a good idea. I used to do this. Give that a go. And the networks and those sort of things. So, and look, funnily enough, I'm not a big fan of networking. I've never been a huge fan of networking groups, right? And I go to them. But I just think that it's not about networking, it's about connecting with people. And you need to have that ability to connect with people, to be able, and especially people that have a similar situation to yourself. There's no point really connecting with a corporate because you're out of your league. But if you've got someone that's in a small business like you that you can talk to about problems, I think it's amazing what sort of solutions you can come up with people that are in totally different industries to you that are actually going through the same challenges you do. But failing that, the odd glass of wine is a good idea too.
So, good advice there, Erwin. So every successful person I've ever run across has made some horrible mistakes along the way. And, it's not normal to just have pure sailing. What was your worst mistake and how did you solve it?
Training myself, without doubt. I bought the franchise, and look, I could go way back to my Paradise framing business, but I stepped into that business without having any experience ever of owning a business. I just thought it'd be a good idea. I'd had enough of having a job, bought this business, and from day one, powered away, and there was a bit of luck involved in that. But when I bought Bartercard in Brisbane, this was a level up that was dramatically different from what I was doing in, framing old ladies' tapestries every day. But I honestly can look back and reflect on, there were two key things. And one was that I didn't put enough effort in myself to train myself. I would certainly train my staff. And, in the early days, you're responsible for everything. You've got to, do the selling, you've got to do the customer service, you've got to do the planning, whatever. And I just think I didn't have enough skills like that. And I also didn't ask for enough help. I didn't go out and do it quick enough. So sometimes I think we had a little bit of a slow jump to get where we want, but eventually we got there because I eventually got the whole idea. But the other part of it is also management. And, looking at so many businesses now that fail, the reason that they fail is they just don't manage anything properly. They don't manage their staff. They have staff that are poor performers, but they don't do anything about it. They, rather than manage them through the process and get them to improve, they just hang on to them for infinitum. And the problem is going to stay there until that person decides, I'm going to leave. And then all of a sudden you go, thank God they've gone. So management, it's management of every aspect of it. It's management of your branding. It's management of your marketing. So you know what works, what doesn't. It's management of the staff. It's management of your clients. It's so important to know what your clients are doing. So there's about 10 keys that I work with our clients through our platform. One of them is management. And management is just simply knowing what results you're getting from everything. And it's about asking one question. If you're not getting the answer you want from that one thing, that one staff or whatever, what are you going to do about it? Fix the problem. Don't let it sit there for ages and ages and ages. I had a guy that I was sitting with a luncheon a couple of years back on, and he ran actually quite a successful business, and he employed these young blokes. And I said to him, how's things going? And he said, look, it's okay, but my guys just don't know how to talk to anybody. I said, have you actually pulled them aside one day and run a training session on how to talk to people? He said, I haven't got time to do that. I mean, that's the answer you get so often with people. I don't have time to manage. I don't have time to train. Yeah, well, then you're going to be doing just about everything yourself for the rest of your life. So yeah. Those two key areas.
Erwin, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you after all this time. I think we worked it out before. It's about 30 years since we last caught up, and it's been great to hear your journey and what you're doing now. And I look forward to seeing how that goes on social media, which is a good way of catching up with people, and wish you well with the thing. Thank you very much for your contribution out there. I'm sure people will get some good little tips and pointers, and look forward to seeing you on the show and for 30 days afterwards with the Access. Erwin, Brem, It's been my
No problem.
pleasure, and thank you very much.
John, great to catch up. Thanks very much, buddy. Good to see you. Talk soon.